Good evening, everybody. It's me, Joe Pasevich. Welcome back to Control Room. It is Wednesday again, and it is March 20, what is this, 26th already?
Yeah.
Good gracious, the month's gone. Yeah. Just like that, March is gone. And did it come in like a lion and go out like a lamb? I guess we'll see. You know the old saying. Folks, there's so much going on. We've got to get right into it. We are into the local election and local town meeting season, and we have some exciting developments to report from Duxbury. And here to help me get through some of this, Christine Hill, Duxbury Substack, check it out, .com, and
Amy Troup.
Amy Troup from Halifax. I didn't forget your name. I just wanted to hear you introduce yourself. And so anyway, so we got so much to cover right now. Duxbury voted down an override last Saturday. Look at that number, 2174 to 1981. That's a roughly 52-48 split. Was that expected, Christine?
Well, we had a very, very loud in favor of the override contingent who were all over town. They had signs all over town. They dominated the town meeting, but there was an underlying feeling that maybe not everybody was in favor of it, but this group was very intimidating. They dox me. They will attack anybody on Facebook who comes out against it. They'll socially attack anybody who comes out against it. But we just kept very rationally putting out the facts and figures about what was going on, how much it would cost. We settled on the message that it was going to raise the average home price, the average home tax by $1,000, but that was going to compound every year, and they designed the override so that you'd have about a 7 to 8% increase in your tax the first year, but they built in this ceiling in the override so you'd have more than 2.5% increase in your property tax over the next 5 years. And then they wanted to have another override so they could continue with 3.5% increases in your taxes. So we put out some charts. In the end, we let everybody know how much this was going to cost. And with no organization, I was writing about it, a few other people were writing about it. In the last 2 weeks, some people came out with things, but with no organization at all, we defeated the override.
And we had that, I was communicating with you just a little bit. And we were kind of bemoaning the fact that, gee, there seems to be an organized and enthusiastic pro-override contingent in town, and there isn't any real organized anti-override or I hate to say anti-override, pro-responsible, responsible budgeting contingent that was making their case out there. And it turned out the way it was. Now, this would have been an operational override, right? This is what I call a forever override.
It would have been a forever override,
right.
An operational override, and I would call it a pro-community vote. The people who vote against the override are pro-community because you want to protect everyone in the community. And I had talked even to members of our finance committee, and I said that I was getting notes all the time from people who are single moms, people who had working class jobs, elderly people on fixed income. They didn't know if they were going to be able to stay in Duxbury, and they felt that they were being left out of the discussion. And I talked to the finance committee, and the person was just dismissive. You can't key services on the lowest rung of the ladder. But that just pushes everybody, a bunch of people in the bottom 10% out of the community.
We're facing a debt exclusion override since we voted to join the South Shore Vocational Technical School District. We now got pulled into having to. Well, a lot of people didn't know when we were joining the South Shore Vocational Technical School District that we would also be getting pulled into building a new school for them. A lot of people just simply didn't know that. They wanted our students to have the option of pursuing a voc tech education, but they didn't know there was going to be a new school, which is now over $270 million or something like that? It's some enormous cost, and it's going to be divided up among the towns that are in that school district. So what we now have to do is, we voted to approve it. We voted to join the district. Now we have to go back and have a ballot question to vote to agree to pay our share of that school construction cost. That's going to happen on the same day as our town election, which, folks, remember, May the 3rd, Saturday, voting hours, I believe, are 9 to 4. That's our town election. That's going to be, there is a contested race there. There is a select board race. Trish Simpson is going up against the incumbent Lynn Fidler. Also, I believe there is one person running in the school committee race, but I don't have the details on that because I think they may have turned in their nomination papers at the last second, but we'll find out about that. There are 2 open seats on the school committee, 2 contested seats on the school committee race, and there is one person, a third wheel, that's trying to get in and knock off one of those people, so good luck to them. In the meantime, I want to back up a little bit and reset right now because we played a tape, speaking of town meetings, we played a tape of the bingo ball scandal. You may have heard about it. It's where the articles at our Marshfield town meeting are supposed to be selected randomly. In other words, you put all the numbers of the articles into a hat, or in our case, we put them on little balls in a bingo ball cage, and then we're supposed to draw those numbers out at random. And here's how it's done.
Roll the ball. I like the sound of that. Can we just roll?
Now you see, the cage has not been rolled, and the town clerk did not reach into the cage to pull that ball out.
And
But the town moderator
take out 2
goes along with the
articles.
with the
We're gonna
farce.
take out 2 balls. The first one will be the number in green.
The town council puts up his fingers. He knows that the first ball has the number 3 on it, but it wasn't drawn out so that you could see it being drawn out randomly. It was already prearranged on a little rack in front of the town clerk. Now the town moderator is going along with the farce, and the assistant, the guy there with the bluish tie and the glasses, is controlling the display board, and he puts up number 3 on the board saying that's the article that's going to be talked about next. Then he puts up number 2 on the board, indicating that's the on-deck article. He doesn't look up. He's not told what those numbers are. He just does it. In other words, they were all in. They appear to have been all in on it. They knew the order of the articles had been pre-selected or pre-arranged, and they made it look like they were following procedure and being open and honest about it, which apparently they really weren't. Okay? Now, as a result of that, I got a lot of feedback, a lot of reaction. People remembered that. And it's very interesting because that was one of the earliest times we had a town meeting inside the new high school auditorium, and they were using the fixed cameras that are mounted on the walls inside the auditorium. Usually they come in with a camera on a tripod and they get to move it around manually. But in this case, they were using a fixed camera on the wall, which had a vantage point looking down on the dais where these shenanigans were going on. And that's wonderful that we caught it.
I think so.
Isn't it great? So
I think so.
They tried to pull a fast one over us. But as a result of that, and the reason why I'm backing up on doing all this is because some people said, what happened to Mr. Gibson? Well, you know, Mr. Gibson became the town moderator, all right? And he was probably the most arrogant and interruptive, if that's a word, moderator we ever had. He was constantly calling out people to hurry up. You have 10 seconds left to talk. You know, what you're saying is irrelevant or not substantive or not germane to the discussion. He was probably the worst moderator we've ever seen. And people asked me about what happened to Mr. Gibson. And so we pulled up a clip to remind people of how Mr. Gibson used to handle town meetings. And so this ties into the override discussion. We had an override to build, a debt exclusion override to build a new DPW barn, a new police station, senior center, and also to contribute funds to the repairs on the seawall. So it was a substantial override. But people wanted those different projects compartmentalized or separated out and voted on separately because not everybody felt we needed to build each one of those things all at the same time. Of course, the town administration applied an often heard moniker or slogan to this effort, and they called it building a better Marshfield, which reminds me of Build Back Better, the national slogan that was
Yes.
being used in the previous administrations. So what happened was, at the town meeting, people wanted those items, those projects separated out. And Bob Parkus tried to find, because we weren't told how it was going to be done. It was not widely known how it was going to be handled. So Bob Parkus, who's a long time veteran of civic involvement in town meetings, simply tried to find out from the moderator if we could separate those projects out before voting on the whole package. And this is how he was treated by Mr. Gibson. We have this.
What is your point of order?
I take it that we will be voting on each project at the same time or separately?
I'm not going to entertain that particular point of order at this time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow a presentation by each of the entities involved, and then we can address that once the presentations have been made and the advisory board has rendered its opinion.
Well, my question on the point of
Excuse
order.
me, it's not debatable. Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
not-
Parkus.
I'm not-
Excuse
I
me,
have a
Mr.
question.
Parkus, please sit down. It's not debatable. That's how we're going to proceed.
Wow.
Mr. Points of order. Look at your rules. Thank you. It's not debatable, sir. Mr. Parkus, I'm not going to argue with you tonight, sir. Please sit down, or I will have someone sit you down.
Wow,
Or I will have someone sit you down.
that's
You know,
crazy.
there are very few people that, if you were to single out somebody that deserves some deference for all his work and dedication and attention to his civic duties, it would be Bob Parkus. Bob's doing okay. He was on my show a couple of months ago. But we have a lot of respect for Bob. But Mr. Gibson has respect for no one, in my view, for no one.
That was
The
hard.
times he was like, and Mr. Gibson, when he would interrupt you, like you get you 2 minutes to speak, and you got 15 seconds, you got 10 seconds, you got 5 seconds. The times that he shut people off, including me, and interrupted people like me, he seemed to, in my eyes, he seemed to enjoy it. He seemed to enjoy it. And to me, that's somebody who either got beat up a lot when they were a kid or was a bully when they were a kid. But mercifully, he's gone. And I think he went away, bless you, he went away when the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts ruled in favor of a person out in Northampton, Massachusetts, who was shut down when they were trying to make a public comment during public comment period at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I believe it was Northampton. And the Supreme Judicial Court made a very strong and very good ruling on people's free speech rights during public meetings.
Amen.
And I think that if Mr. Gibson had stayed on and he left, didn't go for re-election, I think we would have seen Mr. Gibson facing numerous lawsuits because he probably couldn't restrain himself. But anyway, so that brings me back, and that vote was on an override, a debt exclusion override. And so that brings me full circle back around to the discussion about overrides and budgets and town meetings. And I just want to touch upon this briefly by saying last night there was a meeting, a joint meeting of the Select Board and the Advisory Board at Marshfield Town Hall for this upcoming town meeting. And this upcoming town meeting is
Nathan?
Monday, April 28th at 7 p.m. at the Marshfield High School gym. I don't know why it's being put on at the, it's funny, this is the annual town meeting, and on the board and on the front of this document it says Marshfield High School Gymnasium. On the actual warrant article as it is printed, it says gymnasium, but it's typically in the auditorium as we have it on the screen for the show. So I believe that the warrant was printed incorrectly. But either way, the auditorium and the gymnasium are side by side, so you shouldn't get lost, okay? April 28th, starting at 7 p.m., that's a Monday. Now, going back to what I was just saying, there was a meeting, a joint meeting between the advisory board and the select board last night. And one of the biggest things that was discussed, or the biggest thing that was discussed, was the expenditure of $4,574,517.49 from certified free cash. So we're going to spend over $4.5 million from certified free cash, And as usual, there's all these numbers in here like 100,000 here, 250,000 here, 250,000 there, 370,000 there. You know, there you go. Some of these numbers, it's not easy to understand, and you will not get details on some of these numbers. And it's also kind of hard to follow. For example, this says PEG access. That's public education and government access. That means that's money that goes to this TV studio so that you can watch shows like this. That's under the P. P doesn't stand for Pasevich. It stands for public, okay? E stands for education. That's where you have things like you're able to watch football games, soccer games, other events that come out of the schools. And G is government. That's where you get to watch things like live transmission and replays of town meeting and various board and committee meetings. That budget is going down year by year, and it's projected for the coming year to be at $475,000. Now, we're going to appropriate that money at the town meeting. I am confident that we will. But that money will come right back into the town, okay? So it goes back into free cash when we get the reimbursement that comes through the state. So it says here we're spending $475 in free cash for PEG access, okay? But that's actually just coming back to us. So that's why you have to be careful. You have to ask questions about each one of these articles. The opioid settlement funds, that was opioid lawsuit against opioid drug producers. As a result of a multi-billion-dollar settlement, a lot of municipalities are receiving settlement payments for the damages due to opioid drug abuse and health impacts. So that money was already improperly allocated, and that's a mess. That's like the state receiving the COVID relief money and spending it on unemployment benefits, and now the taxpayers have to replace that money. There's again all these kind of round numbers. I advise you to try to get a copy of the warrant. One of the things that's a big thing, I don't see it on our display, and that one of the items that we're taking money from the free cash and putting it into, one of the items we're doing that for is something that they call, quote, reserves. That's R-E-S-E-R-V-E-S, reserves, $900,000. That's what they're saying is we're taking money from free cash and we're putting it into free cash. Okay, it's a little sleight of hand. In other words, they're saying during the year, we want to spend another $900,000, but we can't tell you what we're going to spend it on.
Wow. Yeah.
So I asked the question, why don't you just leave that money in free cash? Why would you put it into reserves and then tap into it without telling anybody, or what? So actually the town accountant was forced to say, I don't know if he actually forced to say, but he did, after hesitating, say, well, all right, we'll come back to the advisory board and the selectmen to let you know when we want to write a check on that. But see, I had to ask that question.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't know. And maybe they were going to write checks without telling anybody because they know behind the scenes. And I also asked the question, is any of that $900,000 going to go to the schools?
Right.
There's like one item in here called school Medicaid for $236,000. There are some things in here that are big numbers that we haven't seen before, and we've never seen a reserve number like that I'm aware of. There it is, $236,130. School Chromebooks. Do you know that they claim that they lose something like 800 Chromebooks a year?
Wow.
And that this school Chromebook expense is going to be an annual thing? I didn't get a chance to ask, but they seem to be giving our students Chromebooks at an earlier and younger age, and a huge number of them are then put into reserve or surplus each year, something like 800 a year. They say they take out of circulation and put into a box at the library in case somebody needs one. Huh? What? It doesn't make sense. That's an enormous expenditure.
Yeah, why wouldn't a child in kindergarten or first grade or whenever they give out the Chromebooks have that and be responsible for it all the way until their senior year?
It's not even clear that that's the case. I believe they collect them at the end of the year from all the students, unless you're going to summer sessions of some sort. But the point is that they admit that that's going to be an ongoing annual enormous expense for these Chromebooks. And I don't know what, my son was one of the earlier ones. He's graduated several years ago, but he was one of the kids who was getting a Chromebook, while he was in high school. And I always said to him, be careful, don't play games, don't enter personal information, because all of that stuff is being tracked. All of your habits, all of your activity on the computer is being tracked. Woo, conspiracy theorist,
Well,
but it's
true.
a fact.
It's true.
We talked about this on the last show, where everything you do and everywhere you go is tracked
Yeah.
and monitored, okay? Everything, every step you take, every move you make, every bond
I'll be
you break.
watching you.
Okay, I'll be watching you, okay? And that's a fact. That's just a fact, okay? So those are among the things that we spotted. We called them out. The advisory board did not finish their meeting. They only got to like Article 7 of the annual town meeting warrant. And the special town meeting warrant has like got 24 articles on it, and the annual town meeting warrant has 11 articles. A lot of articles that they usually appear on the annual town meeting warrant, they put on the special town meeting warrant. They've been doing that for a couple of years now. I think it's because they put things into the special town meeting warrant so that they can get the votes they need for their pet projects and for their politically sensitive projects, because they want people to come to the first night of town meeting where they will be promised, if you just come for one night, you can vote in all the goodies and things you want, and then you don't have to worry about coming back on the second and third nights. Yeah. And there are items in the special town meeting, because special town meeting warrant always goes before the annual town meeting. And I think that's what they're doing again here. And there are some big ticket items. I'm all in favor of improving the ball fields, okay? The ball fields get a lot of use. Parents contribute money to those programs. We need good ball fields. You can't have the kids playing in muck, okay? Ball fields need to be refurnished and regraded from time to time. That's not an issue, okay? But I do have an issue with some of these things, especially on this free cash expenditure being put in on the first night. And so with that, do we have a clip from the selectmen's meeting on, is it Monday? Because to touch upon one other thing, and that is the MBTA lawsuit.
I'm not an expert in school administration. I understand that mandates, unfunded mandates, are handed down quite a bit. And that's where their challenges lie, is because they have all of these mandates that are coming down and all these requirements they're trying to meet. At the same level, we're also meeting, I also have those same unfunded mandates being required of us as well. So it's a challenge not only on the town side, but on the school side. But to your point, it wouldn't hurt to maybe explore that. That would be a conversation I think that would be probably best had with the school committee at this point, to see if there is some way to bring in a consultant, a third party, to look at the school operation and see if there's any suggestions to streamline for efficiency purposes.
Yeah, I mean, when you bring up the superintendent, I remember watching his interview meeting when he's applying to be the superintendent. Nah, he does not seem somebody that's a streamlined person whatsoever, in my opinion. In regards to the unfunded mandates you brought forward, mentioned here, that's another issue. And now that it's been taken up in regards to the matter of the MBTA housing, it'll be interesting how that goes forward in court, because that court decision could expand to other areas in regards to unfunded mandates going throughout all these communities that are being told by the state legislature that you have to do this, but we're not going to cover the costs, and they're going to lay it on the taxpayers. And we're already, I think, at this point right now, seeing what other towns are doing, and then potentially we could be in that situation in regards to a potential override. I think it's something that needs to be tackled in regards to these unfunded mandates, in my opinion.
This goes directly to and I want to touch upon this now, is the fact that the MBTA zoning law has been determined to be an unfunded mandate. And Rentham, Methuen, Middleborough, and Marshfield are now pursuing this in court. They're trying to get the superior courts in their respective districts to rule that we do not have to comply with the MBTA zoning act because it is a mandate that is unfunded.
Yep.
Duxbury too.
And Duxbury is now joining too, so towns are starting to pile on. And again, congratulations, Marshfield Town Meeting voter attendees. You did the right thing, despite what Lynn Fiddler said, despite what all the leaders and the smart people said you should do. We shot it down twice, and we are in the right, and we are in the best position now that anybody could be, really.
Yep.
So now, under pressure, the town's council and the town select board voted to pursue the unfunded mandate cover or protections, and a lawsuit was filed back on February 27th in Plymouth Superior Court. That lawsuit is going to be combined, I believe, with some other towns that are also seeking the protections under an unfunded mandate. And there's the town council, Robert Galvin. And there is going to be, so in the meantime, the state answered the complaint filed by the town, asking for it to be dismissed. And the town also filed for a preliminary injunction in the matter. And what the town is saying is that while the case is being decided, and this case is on a calendar which indicates it will not be decided until early in 2028, all right? So this matter is not going to be decided on whether or not we're going to have the cover of an unfunded mandate protection or claim until 2028. Again, town meeting voters, you, the Marshfield people, in your wisdom, did the right thing, okay? Instead of swallowing this stupid, ridiculous diktat, okay, from the corner office and from the predecessors therein, and did the right thing. And that's why there is now, and so I'm going back to what I was saying, the reason why there's a preliminary injunction being filed by the town of Marshfield is that prevents the state from enforcing the conditions of the MBTA zoning on the town and thereby withholding funding. So the preliminary injunction says the state should not be withholding funding while we're waiting for this case to be decided. And that's already, there's about $200,000 that's needed to do a permitting and some other studies in preparation for dredging the North and South River Channel. Okay, so the preliminary injunction hearing is next Wednesday, 9 a.m., Plymouth Superior Court.
Oh.
That's the next hearing. And it's probably going to involve Middleborough, and I don't know if Duxbury will be on the roster with us at that time. So 9 a.m. next Wednesday, there will be a hearing on the preliminary injunction. There's no hearing yet scheduled on the request or the motion from the state for a dismissal, which tells me that the judge probably wants to hear the arguments inside the preliminary injunction hearing before he starts thinking about whether or not this could be dismissed and in effect rule in favor of the state and throw out Marshfield's case. But again, this is under pressure from the voters of Marshfield that this is happening. If it wasn't for that, we would be, in a bad place, okay, with a lot of other towns that did not have the balls or the courage or the onions or whatever you want to call it to stand up. There's Diana DiZoglio. She's in charge of the division of, what's it called, the Department of Unfunded Mandates. And they made that ruling, and DiZoglio handed it down, approved it, and handed it out. And she's taken a lot of heat now from Maura Healey and from the Attorney General Campbell. Mass State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, I don't know if it's DiZoglio or DiZolio, accuses Attorney General Andrea Campbell of trying to scapegoat her, ratcheting up the dispute. So that's where that stands. I don't have time to go over this. There's even an affidavit filed by Mike Maresco in here. And it basically kind of reiterates the things that we were claiming at town meeting. Said, Mike, no, you guys, you keep telling us we have to vote this through, that it's the smart thing to do. And it's like they've kind of adopted all of our arguments, which were good, legally based arguments.
Yep.
And so that's where we stand. We got an override coming up on May 3rd. I think it's an override that we can't avoid it, because since we agreed to join the South Shore Voc District, we're on the hook to help out with paying for the new school. There it is. Again, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025, 9 to 1. Notice last year the voting hours were 9 to 6. 9 to 6 when an incumbent was bounced out. Okay, this year we hope to bounce out another incumbent, making it the third in a row, tic-tac-toe. All right, bing, 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 like on the roulette wheel. Not the roulette wheel, the one-armed bandit. You know, we're gonna get 3 cherries in a row. Boom. And Fiddler's going to be gone. Okay, 3 incumbents in a row that are not serving your interest.
We hope
That'll
so.
be May 3rd. And the override on that date, well, I don't know. I think if the override gets defeated in Marshfield, I think we're still on the hook. It's one of those things, just like MBTA zoning. You can vote against it, but then you're still obligated in some way. So it's kind of it might be even a similar situation. I don't know. The next advisory board meeting with the select board, as far as I know, is going to be Monday, March 31st. And that's what I have to say. And I want to segue back to the ladies now. We were just talking about the Duxbury override, the great news from Duxbury. And I want to tell you, Christina, it's amazing. We talk about this on the local Facebook sites and in Hanover and in Marshfield. And like people are like happy. They're celebrating for Duxbury.
Yes,
It's not
Halifax
their town.
too.
And Hanover and Marshfield are facing overrides. We're probably going to have an operational override, maybe not this year, but the following year, to pay for the students that have to go to South Shore Voc School. But they're happy here. Everybody's like, thumbs up, yay, you know, it's great. Duxbury did it. We're glad for you. We're encouraged. Let's put it that way.
It gives us hope. Nobody can
Yeah.
afford these things.
Yeah.
Nobody can.
No, and when our tax levy, the base tax levy right now in Marshfield, I don't know what it is, 80 million or something, over $80 million. If it goes up automatically by 2.5%, according to Prop 2.5, right? That's almost $2 million a year extra that the town has to spend. And then when you add new growth, you know the new growth factor.
Right.
We're getting a 3% plus tip in most years increase in the amount of taxes that we collect. And the schools are the biggest budget item, and they typically go up 2% a year. So the bottom line is that the normal tax increases should be enough to cover your increase in expenses. And most of our budget is salaries anyway, right? If you have a big project or you need a new building, well, you do an operational override if necessary, you know, that kind of thing. But from year to year, these scare tactics that get employed, and not only that, but even with a typical year's budget, year to year, we're seeing free cash. That's leftover money. If anybody out there wants to research it, go to the state's Division of
Local services.
the DLS, Division of Local Services. I had a paper out here somewhere. Oh, there it is. It's in my pocket. It's the DLS, Division of Local Services, and there's a whole description of free cash, how you calculate it, what it is, what you can do with it. And Marshfield is like getting $4 to $5 million a year free cash now. That's left over. And our stabilization fund, I heard, is around $7 million. So, I mean, that's free cash that gets put into another piggy bank that is available to be used, as you know, in Duxbury. And Duxbury didn't want to do that.
No, Duxbury didn't want to do that. But I think what I'd really like to talk about is I'd like to talk about how this was presented to us.
Yeah.
Okay? So about a year and a half ago, the town manager hired a new finance director, Mary McKinnon, and they started out almost immediately pursuing an override. So they had a meeting in August 2023, and they came in and they said they needed an override, and they mentioned it was going to be about $5 million. It was not popular with the elected officials, and it was not popular with the finance committee. But they went ahead and they planned it anyway, okay? So then by December 2024, so they have this big presentation that the Duxbury is in a structural deficit financially. We can't do anything to control our expenses. It's just we're not making enough revenue. So they get up and they have one person after another, a sob story about how they're going to have to lay off people. And I'd like to quote from you what our town manager said. The fire department would lay off 2 firefighters. The police department would lay off 2 patrolman positions. And then he listed 4 positions in the DPW. And the DPW is all the frontline, also safety positions, because when it snows, they're the ones who always get up in the middle of the night and go and clear the snow, okay? So we had presentation after presentation, select board meeting after select board meeting with people from the select board, the town manager, the finance committee, getting up and saying that people were going to lose their jobs. Because there's a difference between reducing a position and the people actually losing their jobs. And of course, nobody wants to lay off a 30-year-old patrolman who just had a baby. I mean, that's everybody's nightmare. Okay, so then the override doesn't pass. There had been some concern that we would have to lay off 2 policemen and 2 firemen, and we didn't want to do that. So we had discussed on Facebook and on my Substack and elsewhere ways we could fund their salaries in case the override didn't pass. Well, it turned out we didn't even have to worry about that, because at the select board meeting on Monday, Rainey Reed, our town manager, told us that even though the override hadn't passed, there were going to be no firefighters, no police officers, and no frontline DPW workers laid off at all. So that is 8 positions that wouldn't be laid off. This is what he said. There were 2 proposed layoffs in the fire department. However, they will not have to be laid off because there will be 2 retirements. In the police department, there was going to be 2 layoffs, but we have a retirement and a resignation. In the DPW labor side, the union side, there was going to be 4 layoffs. However, there are 4 vacancies there. Okay, so let me go through and fact check it there.
Well, actually, they probably had pink slips already issued.
No, let me go. There were 7 vacant positions in the DPW the whole time. There were, those police positions were never filled. They haven't been filled. They haven't been filled at all. And the fire department, so there was no resignation in the police department that I could find. And there was no retirement since last April, that went before the board, last April 2024.
Oh.
And there was, in the fire department, there was one guy, it's very sad, he's on disability, but they've known about it since last November that he was on disability and he was going to have to retire. And then there was another guy, Chuck Nudd, a great firefighter EMT we have over there, who just turned 60 and he just maxed out his pension. And he's a great guy. So the town manager is trying to say that Chuck didn't tell anybody that he was going to retire. That's what he wrote to me to excuse this. Like, this guy who's known everybody in the fire department didn't tell anybody that he was going to retire. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it's all a total lie. And so what I want people to be really careful about, and what I think this shows is, even me, I have a background as a financial reporter, I did not get, and so I was able to find different ways that you could pay for these positions. But I did not get to the depth of the extent to which they were lying until the town manager came out on Monday with this.
That's insane.
Wow. Our officials not being truthful.
I immediately go to, you said in August of 2023, a new financial advisor, or was it 2024?
2023, there was a new finance director, and they started planning this in secret, even though they were basically told by the select board and by the finance committee not to do it.
Okay, so where did this financial director come from? So she's not the finance committee that's like an appointed position of a town. She's sort of like a town planner or a, like a town planner or a town administrator. She's the finance director. She's a hired position.
Yes, she's a hired position.
Where did she come from?
She came from Bellingham, but let me find her. She had another position before that was.
So it's
interesting.
another town position that they're putting in, and it's a way of bringing down what I call the state's ideas, and somebody's getting paid to do the state's ideas in your town and taking over. So basically they're trying to bankrupt towns, in my opinion.
She had been, before she came, she'd been
My
at the
theory.
chief financial officer in Bellingham. And then before that, she was the project manager at the Technical Assistance Bureau at the state. And she has
Oh.
spoken about how she's going to do Duxbury. Like she's going to come in here and
What?
do Duxbury and completely transform it. So she comes in here with all
Why?
this list of things that we could do to, like she treats it like a corporation that are completely against the values of Duxbury. Like we have decided we do not want pot stores in Duxbury. I know you guys have one here in Marshfield. We don't want one. She's like, why can't you have a pot store?
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
So the marijuana, the marijuana, they brought them into the towns with a 3%. You're going to get 3% of the sales.
Right.
They've removed that. The state removed that.
You're kidding.
No, so we're making contracts now with these 2 dispensaries in the town of Halifax, and we literally did it at town meeting. If you listen to the conversation around it, it was directly because they thought that the 3% would help the town with revenues.
Right.
And then year and a half, 2 years later, we're redoing contracts because it's gone. It's null and void.
Oh, you're kidding.
So I don't know, maybe Mara decided to stop giving us the 3% tax, but tax candy instead.
No idea.
I always look at marijuana is to Massachusetts what opium was to China 150 years ago. It was like designed to basically keep everybody stoned and incapacitated.
All you do is smell that stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
God.
It's not gonna go over well with my pot smoking friends. I'm sorry, guys, but
I have nothing
You know,
against it if you
give
want
it
to
up.
do it. I just don't like the carrot from the state.
Well, and everything in moderation. Let's put it that way.
yeah.
Well, I think that, it's a residential town with lots of kids, and I don't mind if somebody wants to smoke pot, but I really don't want them smoking pot in front of all the kids.
Yeah, I would agree with
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So what's going to happen now? When's the next meeting in Duxbury? Is there going to be a resolution to this story? Are they going to have another special meeting in the summer or what?
So what's going to happen? Well, it's not even clear that they have to lay anyone off, okay? So they're having a meeting on Monday with the select board, and they're going to talk about options going forward. At the same time, the town manager is really in the soup with people. He's been getting in fights with people on Facebook with people calling for him to resign.
Good.
And he is right
Bye.
now going to be assessed. What is it when you go through your
Evaluation?
He's going to be evaluated next Monday and the week after that. So there's going to be a public evaluation of the town manager right after this failed, and after it failed, we all learned that he'd lied about it the whole time. And worse, he gets the police chief and the fire chief to get up, who are really good guys, to get up and talk about the layoffs. And Sheila Segarzi, the director of the
That's sad.
DPW, and she got up and talked about the layoffs when everybody knew there weren't going to be any layoffs.
Well, they should not go along with it.
Yeah, but I mean, imagine you're a middle-aged guy and you have kids or whatever, and you have this.
And your paycheck may be on the line.
In your paycheck, what are you going to do?
Well, so my thought process is a little like, yes, okay, we might lose jobs, blah, 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 but what about our kids? Like, if we keep letting all of this go to the state, what about our kids? So maybe there's a tough time, but if the fire chief says to the police chief and the police chief says, and you get your little group of town employees together and you say, this isn't right anymore. We need to be honest to the people that are paying our bills, our neighbors. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but I think that there's a lot more behind everything. Like, we have to really guard the country at this point in time from these kinds of crimes. Because it is a crime.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some self-reflection. I really don't know what else to say about it. I don't want to. I respect these people. And I don't want to trash them. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just stating that if people I'm not trying to speak
Yeah,
about
yeah.
anybody individually, but if you know about something that's wrong, I think you say it. I mean, I do it all the time in my town, but you know.
And at the same time, you've got to make room for future increases for other things that are coming down the pipe. Like, I think Duxbury's facing a big problem with their water supply.
Well, also, the other thing that's going on in Duxbury is that we have a water enterprise, which means the select board, which is also the Water and Sewer Commission, can raise our rates without any input from anybody.
Oh.
So we have an issue about whether or not we have to treat PFAS in the town. We meet the EPA regulations for PFAS, and it's much cheaper. It would be much cheaper for all the individual people in Duxbury if they just got home treatment. It's about 20% of the cost to just put the stuff on your house instead of have it treating centrally. Because you can't do that to meet EPA regulations, but you can do that to meet your own concerns about getting PFAS down as low as possible. So they raised the rates again on Monday, and if those rates continue, they're going to go up 30%, then 30%, then 30%. So that's going to compound. It's going to be more than 100% over 3 years. And the idea is for them to build up enough revenues in the water enterprise for us to be able to fund a $30 to $40 million PFAS treatment plant. Do we need that if we're meeting the EPA's regulations for PFAS? And then also, PFAS there's a lot of different ways to treat it, and the ways to treat it are increasing, and then we're hoping going down in price. So do we really want to double everybody's water bills in the next 3 years, and is it really the right thing to do that without any input from the town meeting?
No.
It requires some long-term planning, and like I said, you got to leave room for an increase like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's all part of Mary McKinnon's plan to do Duxbury.
Mary
Yeah.
McKinnon?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, you were just
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny though? Every town has a water problem right now or a sand mining issue. It's really it's spreading. It's sort of like right now how we're seeing talks of Proposition 2.5 in most towns. It's water issues, MBTA issues. Let's raise the taxes.
And what is the state's impact on us? It's like we're getting MBTA zoning jammed down our throats, and then we're getting these emissaries, these apostles of a different philosophy heading out into our towns. They're being sent out to our towns to try to promote an agenda or some kind of a reset.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, I went to a little meeting last night that was held over at Stellwagen in Marshfield. I had never been in Stellwagen. I recommend Stellwagen Brewery over there on Enterprise Drive. The beer is fantastic, and they often have presentations. Like last night, I was there for a presentation by an organization called One Commonwealth.
Yes.
And while that was going on in the
Morris.
main room, and they actually even have cornhole tournaments. It's such a big open space where this brewery is located. You could practically play pickleball inside there.
It's like an industrial place.
Yeah, it is. So they move all the tables and benches out of the way, and then they have like these games going on certain nights. But while I was at the One Commonwealth presentation, there was somebody putting on a big PowerPoint presentation to save the whales.
Oh.
It was really-
I would have gone to that.
It was fun. It was
Did
fun.
it say anything about getting rid of windmills?
Well, I was thinking about that because a friend of mine was hired recently to work for the wind project, the offshore wind project. And I was talking to them, and they were saying, "Oh, you don't know what we do. Every time we do survey work or do seismic work or sonar work, we have to have ships with pipes that lay down curtains of bubbles that help protect the whales, and we have to monitor where the whales are, and et cetera." But anyway, that's another story. But I recommend Stellwagen. Yeah, it was a nice place. And so I go to this One Commonwealth thing, and I thought they were going to talk about housing alternatives and ideas. And as a housing commissioner, I'm looking for ideas. I know that we need to serve, there is a need for public housing or publicly assisted housing. I'm arguing against that at all. We need more of that, actually. truthfully.
But MBTA isn't that.
But MBTA is not the way to do it. So I went there and talked to the people, and I'm like, there wasn't hardly anybody there. I
Yeah.
thought there'd be maybe a room full of people or something, or one
Yeah.
of the side rooms, but it was like hardly anybody there.
We were
I
all
was
at joint
surprised.
finance and selectmen's meetings last night.
That too. But I went to this meeting at Stellwagen, and then I ran over to the Selectmen's Advisory Board meeting, and I caught most of that. But I'll tell you one good thing about the One Commonwealth presentation, which turned out really what they were doing is they were recruiting people.
Oh,
They were recruiting people to get involved in the fight to pass MBTA zoning.
oh.
That's what
Wow.
it was. It wasn't a discussion of housing alternatives.
Okay.
It was how do we get more people to go to town meeting and push them over the top to get MBTA zoning in.
Wow.
That's your tax dollars at work.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
it's not tax dollars.
It's not?
dark money.
Oh, dark money.
It's dark
Well, that's
money.
like, you ever hear of something called a quasi-public agency?
Yes.
There are some of those in Massachusetts, and they've supported with your tax. They are supported with your tax dollars and any other way to get money. And guess what? The regular rules of open meeting law and public records law don't apply to them.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one good thing about going to that seminar last night was they had an open tab for all the people that attended.
Wow, so that's being paid for by the taxes.
I could have got blasted, okay, on your dime.
And then gone to the selectmen's
And they
meeting.
went to the select meeting.
I was wondering,
And-
this whole time I'm like, how did you go to the selectmen's meeting?
Right, I could have walked in and ralphed all over the selectmen and got arrested, but that's, yeah, it was an open tab. So I recommend going to Stellwagen, and I recommend going to One Commonwealth meetings on MBTA zoning, because if it's in a bar, drink up, boys. And I felt kind of out of place because they were saying that they referred to MBTA zoning not as MBTA zoning or a state mandate, but they referred to it as zoning reform.
Yeah, well, that's basically what it is. It's
But it's such an innocuous sounding way of putting it, you know.
Well, I've heard that from somebody who's in the Mass Association of Realtors at Realtor Day on the Hill. He was upset. They told me I couldn't go up to see the state representatives because I wasn't aligned with what they were thinking about pushing MBTA housing, which, by the way, is mostly rentals, so I don't know why realtors would be for that. But
Yeah, there's no place for you guys in that for realtors.
yeah, so it's really, it's
Yeah.
like creepy.
Okay.
That our, anyways, Andrea Campbell was saying how it was the American dream, and I was like, what is going on here? Anyway, I was told, and so this guy says, you're insane, because I was against it, and I was like, okay, have you read MBTA 3A housing? And he was like, no, and I'm like, I would wonder who's insane then. You Massachusetts Association of Realtors spokesman that gets paid.
Well, anyway,
Seriously ridiculous.
you go to these events, you get to see how the other side thinks, and I actually appreciate being able to see where they're coming from and how they're thinking. So I'm not, I told somebody I felt like I was an American sitting in on a meeting of the Japanese admirals like a week before Pearl Harbor, you know, like I was getting to hear what the strategy was and what was going to happen.
Right?
And then being a spy, like a fly on the wall, so to speak. Bzzz.
Help me.
And so I also remembered when I was working overseas, I actually had time as an election observer. I got to see elections in the former Soviet Union.
Oh.
And there was always rumors about how much drinking went on during elections. They would give people small bottles of vodka, like 250 milliliter bottles of vodka, to encourage them to go vote for the right person.
Oh, wow.
And then when you'd go to some of the polling places, like I had to travel all over the country going to polling places, you'd go and say, hi, here's my credentials, I'm an observer for such and such organization, and I'd like to speak to the clerk or the person managing the polling place. And you'd go in the back room and there were like bottles all over the place. They were all lit up, you know.
That's terrible.
So anyway, it just kind of reminded me. I'm sorry, I'm maybe carrying that analogy a little bit too far, but that was my experience.
Oh, can I just key
Please.
off that?
Yes, you
I
can.
wanted to thank Susan Kelly, the town clerk in Duxbury. The town fought for 3 or 4 years in a row to maintain an independent clerk who's independently elected every year and doesn't report to the town manager. And she ran an excellent election, keeping an eye on the vote the whole time. And it was a fair and free election, and we all really appreciate that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
You can't take those things for granted around
Yeah.
here.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You know, and we have some experiences. Well, in the last couple of minutes, what's happening in Halifax these days?
So
Are you
last-
guys making any efforts on fighting MBTA zoning or what?
So Ken Sweezy and the other one that I don't like came last night to the town meeting to talk to the selectmen in the town. We weren't allowed, though, any open meeting.
It was a town meeting or what kind of
The
meeting?
selectmen.
Select board meeting, okay.
But we weren't allowed to ask any questions of our state reps because I already had one lined up. But, you know, they didn't allow that. But Ken Sweezy did great, and he has 26 bills going on. And
Right.
she's kind of like hooking onto his backpack. And
Are you talking about Lenatra?
I am.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
not a
didn't mean
fan.
to say that word.
It's okay. No, I'm all set with her. But anyway, so then we went, so they're doing a lot with trying to get different bills bipartisan passed in the state and trying to redo Chapter 70 money, which just so that everybody knows is the school money. And so that, and what else? So then we went into a joint finance selectmen's meeting about what we were going to do, and there was 3 different choices for an override, and so 2 different choices for an override, and the third one was to use free cash. So in Halifax, we have like a little over $1 million in free cash, and we're looking at using $500,000 to $600,000 of our free cash to stabilize us so that we're not losing teachers. And I get that because we don't want to really lose teachers, but you know, they did, even though it's not recommended to use free cash, decide to go along with that. So, and then our selectman, that is the chair that I am not really that proud of, decided to read a letter out loud that he wasn't going to seek re-election. Yay. And he said that
And when is the election?
the election in Halifax is May 17th. May 17th. And our town meeting is on May 12th at 6:30.
Are you going to be sad to see that guy go?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Is somebody stepping up?
Yes, we have a contested seat. Today was the last day to poll. So, and then to turn
And
in.
you read the announcement last night.
Yes.
Oh.
But we have William Smith.
Did he nominate Kamala Harris to fill in for him in the I mean, that
wi-
sounds kind of tricky.
He wishes.
Okay.
I could have, after town meeting with 722 people that said no, I knew he wasn't going to rerun anyways because I think that he's fearful of losing. But he said that his goal was to stabilize the town, and he certainly didn't do that.
Okay. Was he a one-termer?
He's been in and out of town politics. He was a moderator for years, and
Oh,
I
one
will
of
give
those.
him props. I thought he was a great moderator,
Yeah.
very good. But as a selectman, he's just ripped our town apart.
It's so hard to find people to run. I mean, we have just the select board race that's contested. That's it.
We have a select
In
board race
Duxbury, the
and a
entire
planning
slate,
board
the
race.
entire slate was uncontested.
The entire
You-
slate was uncontested. Nobody ran for the housing authority. We have to, okay, and the clerk, the town clerk got the most votes. She won the popularity contest.
Okay. That's it for us. Thanks to Christine Hill, DuxburySubstack.com, and Amy Troup, Halifax Planning Board. See you next time.